National Film Preservation Foundation, these 10 films were restored and preserved on much more stable polyester film and digitized for access. They are now available to researchers and scholars for years to come. And you might think that the story of heroics would end there, but no. My friends and colleagues, let me now turn your attention to the tenacity and ingenuity that you are here to witness specifically tonight. Upon the restoration of the film, and in light of the 25th anniversary of the Byrd Polar Archives, Pamela Theodotou, media specialist for the Byrd Polar Research Center, conceived of an extraordinary feat of storytelling. Pam embarked on distilling the surviving 10 reels of footage from Admiral Byrd's 1933 to 1935 Antarctica expedition into a powerful production that conveys this story to a new generation. Paying homage to the Paramount cinematographers who captured the dramatic and glorious story of polar exploration, Pam masterfully pieced together over 1,000 clips of snow, machinery, sled dogs, penguins, camps, and the men who experienced them. Men like Edgar Cox, whose job it was to wrangle the cows on the expedition. Yes, keep an eye out for the cows and Mr. Cox, who actually do make an appearance in the film tonight. Through Pam's work, we will experience the severe conditions, see the hardships, and get a small sense of how remarkable the effort of these pioneers was. I fully expect that you will be completely absorbed by this amazing piece of storytelling. But as you are swept away into the world of cold and ice, daring and adventure, I ask you to keep in the forefront of your minds the extraordinary effort that brings this film to you here today. The description and preservation work undertaken by the archives, and the research and filmmaking of the director. And if you are so moved to enable other amazing work like this, may I call your attention to the handout that you received tonight, where you will find information on how to donate to this important cause. Please enable us to identify, preserve, and make discoverable other gems from our polar archives by making a generous gift to the Byrd Polar and Climate Research Center archives in recognition of their 25th anniversary. And now, I would like to introduce you to the mastermind, the creative genius behind this moving, intense glimpse into the frigid and fascinating world of polar exploration in 1933, Pamela Theodotou. Pamela, who is the director of the film you are here to see tonight, is an artist and a filmmaker. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, a law degree, and an MFA in Cinema Arts. She is currently the media specialist for the Byrd Polar and Climate Research Center. As a filmmaker, she works through her own production company, Nix Film, creating documentary and feature film projects. She's been working with Laura Kissel, the Polar Curator, for the past 2 years to research and construct the film you are about to see. And so I'd now like to ask Pam to come up and introduce her film by telling us a little bit more about her experience putting this film together. Pam?
Well, thank you all for coming. This was, I think, the best way to put it was a professor of mine at CCAD. When he heard I was doing this work and I was sharing a lot of what was going on and how the work was going, that he said, you know, this is one of those things that's a labor of love. And I really, truly, truly believe that. The material was so extraordinary. And one of the things that we tried to do was continue the preservation of what the film was that we had by making sure that every single frame we had got into the film. So what you are going to see from these 28 original reels that then became 10 are every bit of that film. And it was a matter of crafting a narrative story out of what we could see. That process was a 2-year process. It took a great deal of research in the archive to really see what we were looking at. So when you see the story here, what we originally saw was a lot of snow. And a lot of snow and digging some more snow, and then there were some planes, and then there were a lot of dogs. And as you watch it, you start to see smaller things, and there are hints about what you're looking at. They might be a scientific instrument, or you might see the same face again and again, and you wonder, who is that guy? And what is his job? What does he do? So the more you get into the archive and you start looking at what is all there to amass, you then try to figure out what it is that story, what that story is, what the chronological order of events are, and you start placing these pieces, these small clips of film together in that order. What was brilliant about Byrd is that as an incredible promoter, I mean, this man put together his expeditions on his back. He went to everyone he knew. Many of the geological places that you'll see in Antarctica, you'll see it in the film. He's naming after these men of industry who helped fund him on these expeditions. So even when he came back home, he was fastidious about making sure that he answered every letter, whether it was to a small school child asking, Mr. Byrd, could you please bring me back a penguin when you come back from Antarctica? And he would very kindly write to every single one of these kids. And to this particular little girl, he said, well, they don't make very good pets, but I will tell you, I will bring back a penguin for you, but he's going to live at the zoo. So you need to come and see your penguin at the zoo. So as far as a promoter, he took that very, very seriously. And as a man who was living in an age of gentlemen, I truly, if you read his letters, they have that quality of a man who understood who he was and who he represented, and he took that as the public trust. He wasn't going to disappoint people that he felt he was working for. So everything you see is his very, very planned out process to make sure that he recorded everything he did as much as he could, because what he would do then is bring this back and do a exhausting lecture tour. And what you're about to see is called the Lecture Tour Series Films. And that is because he used to show bits and pieces of these films as he would talk about the experience. We were lucky enough to find a great deal of bits and pieces of his scripts throughout the archive that sometimes helped us point to what we were looking at. So when we saw those many, many versions that over a span of 15 or 20 years after he returned that he was doing lectures, we were able to find the facts that we needed in order to try to create the timeline that you see here, and then be able to give you a little bit more information. The last thing I'll tell you about the film is that it was all silent except for a few small pieces. And that is because anything that you will hear that is spoken that is connected to the image itself, like a regular film, was something that they did in Hollywood when he got back, because he also wanted to make films and collect all of this together. Some of those films exist. The very first one from 1928 was actually a film that Paramount sent a whole crew down with him, and they just did amazing footage down there and created a movie that you can still get on DVD today. And then the second expedition, he then convinced them, give me a couple of guys, I need your best cinematographers, and he took 2 guys down. You'll see them sometimes cranking away on their equipment. So what you're going to see is mostly from the second expedition is that footage. Sprinkled through it is some of it he used in his lecture series from the very first, which he was able to get some of that footage from Paramount. So you'll see a little bit of that too. And lastly, the verbal component that you'll hear him speaking, that's actually his voice. And those are all from broadcasts, radio, any interviews that we had from spanning 30 years after he returned. So we utilize that to try to narrate some of what you're seeing, because he was very used to talking about what he did in Antarctica. So with that, I hope you enjoy it. Afterwards, we're going to be doing a short question and answer, so if you'd like to stick around for that, you're more than welcome. And we also have concurrently going on at the Thompson Library a beautiful exhibition with lots of information about the Byrd Center, as well as Admiral Byrd, and some of the things that you can see there are really extraordinary, like some actual frozen ice cores and some of the great work that they do there. It's a wonderful organization, and I totally enjoy working with them. So enjoy.